Welcome to the Colon with the Boys podcast, where we bring you new content creators every week. We are your hosts, Ascend and Nathan.
What up?
Just want to remind everyone that we are now on Spotify, iTunes, and any podcast app out there. Please take a minute to follow us on Twitter, which is at Cold One Podcast, and continue to tell your friends. We really appreciate all of your guys' support. So thank you for that. Today, we bring you episode 34 titled Retrotainment. We talked to Zack, which is the lead visual designer for an independent game development company called Retrotainment Games. The company makes new games and cartridges for the NES, or the Nintendo Entertainment System, for you people out there that don't know what that is.
Literally, that's just Nintendo to me. I don't know. People talk about the Atari and all this, I always think I had the Atari, and then people are like, no, you idiot, you had an NES. I'm like, all right, sorry. It's just a Nintendo, you know?
Remember, the Atari and all those older systems look like station wagons.
Yeah, that's one of the things I remember when Knox always told me they were wooden. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, at least they had wooden parts that looked like
a station
wagon look, yeah. Anyway, we talked to Zack about the inside of how an indie company works, the NES itself, and how you can get your hands on the games that they create. So without further ado, sit back, plug in your NES, and open a cold one.
Yeah. I just wanna crack that door with that boys, yeah. No more baby mamas, no more kids to watch, cause I got babysitters. Now it's time for licking, come on, give it to me, cause it's my escape. Now it's time to annihilate, so my troubles all die away. I'm on a diet, Please do not try this, cause do not invite it. I'm dripping in go call the Midas. This night I was excited, it got me reignited. I've been waiting so long I can't fight it, but now I'm Mike Tyson inside, I'm on fire. It ain't nothing like a true bro, brotherhood worth more than a huge blow. We're two hoes, two back full of new clothes.
I heard your cat meowing in the background. Is she going to make an appearance this episode?
Probably. She's doing that a lot lately. I don't get it. But
I can never tell if that's on my end and I just somehow got a cat stuck in my basement maybe, or hopefully it's on your end.
Hopefully that doesn't happen often, dude. It's kind of...
No, but you worry about, I don't know. I've had friends that's happened to, where we just heard this weird sound for a while, and then we went downstairs, and there's been a cat living in our basement for weeks.
Oh my god!
Yeah. That's
we
crazy.
have quite a bit of feral cats where I live. There's one that sits up under my window because I have a window unit in the window because it gets hot as balls in here with all the computers, and so every time I come out in the morning, it's chilling up under my window. And then there's one that's in the backyard that hangs out in the backyard at night, and it pisses the dogs off, and it pisses me off because every time I go to let them out at night, they start hauling balls across the backyard trying to catch this damn cat before it gets over the fence. And then I have to go.
Do you live in a city or a rural area?
No, I live.
Okay.
It's like suburban.
The city, yeah, suburban.
Oh, okay. Where are you guys from?
I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And that's where I'm originally from too. But right now I'm living in Seattle.
Oh, nice. I was just in Seattle for PAX.
Yeah. Actually.
Oh, yeah. That's how this whole thing happened.
Yeah. That's what I was. Let's just segue into that. So I was at PAX. I don't know if you were there on Sunday. I was looking for Retrotainment, but
I was. There were a few of us up there, and Sunday was. That wasn't the last day.
No, it was second to last.
Sunday was. Yeah, I must have been up there somewhere. We were rotating a lot, and I think by Sunday you get kind of tired working a booth, so you're constantly trying to find excuses, just oh, I gotta go to the bathroom, which is oftentimes very true. But you're just you stop holding it in at a certain point. You're okay, it's Sunday, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom, or switching in okay, let me just sit behind the booth somewhere and relax for a second while the other two guys take care of it or something like that.
Yeah, it was kind of overwhelming for me because PAX West was actually my first convention. I don't go to conventions much. I do want to go to a lot more now that I've been to one. But
so this was this one was your first one ever?
Yeah, first one. Well, I mean, I've been to smaller cons, but PAX is huge, so it's my first big con.
Yeah, yeah, it's that's a good one to get started.
It is
for sure.
It is. It was amazing. I really enjoyed myself. I could only go one day this year because work, but next year we'll have Nathan out here as well, and we'll be able to go a few days and check it out. Do you know if you guys will be making it next year or?
Yeah, I mean, I think our plan is to kind of just keep doing them. We so the company I work with called Retrotainment, we make like NES games.
Mhm.
So we make new games and build them in the original coding language for the NES and put them on cartridge. And just recently we started we ported 2 of them to the PC, and one of them just launched on Xbox One, and we're trying to launch on some other consoles right now as well. But we got started with PAX Rising in San Antonio.
Okay.
In I think it was 2016 or 2015. I can't.
And
remember.
now that's called PAX South, right?
Yeah. And San Antonio is PAX South, and then we did East right after that in Boston, and then we did West. And I don't know if you've met any of the people that run PAX, but they're super cool and they're super helpful, and they really fought to get us in. Like, I think when we were trying to get into PAX West the first time, and it was completely booked. And the guy we were dealing with really kind of went to bat for us and got us a booth and everything like that. So
Nice.
that was really great. And yeah, so now we're kind of just hoping to keep doing it for life.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, PAX was originally designed, a gaming convention for the gamer, and they really put a lot of effort into independent game companies or indie developers. Because I mean, I don't know if you guys were on the 6th floor.
Yeah, we
Okay.
were on floor 6.
Because
which the first year we did that, I was super weird about it, because it was we were back in the corner, we were up at the top floor, and it was this is a shitty spot. I wish we why aren't we down near the other indie mega booth and stuff, and all the other indie games, and this is just awful. We were right next to Audio Technica,
okay,
which is a headphone company, or they make all sorts of things, but they're mostly showing off headphones for gaming stuff.
Mhm.
But they make turntables and other stuff. And Gary, the guy that runs their booth and stuff there, was super cool to us. I met we met a lot of cool people that were coming from that booth and just checking our stuff out, and then people that work there, which is actually I think how I got involved in this as well. A friend that I met working there was friends with someone that you were friends with, and then kind of got us connected. It's very weird how that works, but essentially I went for a walk the one day, going down, and it was just the 4th floor was just so crammed full of people. And you slowly started realizing we may have the best spot in the entire convention, because if people are up on the 6th floor, they want to be there. There's room to walk around.
Right.
There's room to just check stuff out, and you can take your time. And we're 6th floor forever. We never want to. I mean, obviously, if PAX moves us, we'll go. But we love it up there, and that attitude quickly changed as soon as the convention started.
Yeah. I think the person you're talking about is someone we're actually trying to get on the podcast. Actually,
oh, nice.
That worked at the Audio Technica booth. But I was on the 6th floor. I was checking a lot of things out up there. But most of my time was spent on the 4th floor with the main stuff. And what I was curious about this. The 6th floor is all indie stuff. And then the 4th floor has the indie mega booth. So what's the difference? Is that something you have to pay extra for to go into, or sign up early enough, or is that kind of a highlight of indie companies, or what is that?
I'm really not sure. So I don't really deal with a lot of the stuff in terms of cost, or in terms of the business, in the same way that our we have the two guys that essentially run the company that we have, Greg and Tim. Greg is essentially kind of the classic director's role, and he works with all of us. We're a really small team of 5 or 6 people, So he coordinates everything, and like essentially at the end of the day, like everything is kind of like we need a singular voice, even though we're a super flat company in terms of like how we make. So he's kind of the guy that makes those decisions, and Tim fits like essentially the classic producer's role of stuff.
Okay.
And he's the guy that if you try to contact us through like social media or anything on our website, like you're gonna end up talking to Tim. And he's super 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 good at his job, and like that. He's the guy that's able to kind of be in the background a little bit and not really take so much of the starring role on things. But if we didn't have him, we wouldn't be able to do anything that we do. And the two of them deal more closely with like the business end of stuff. And I think I have an idea of how the mega booth works, but I don't want to say, I don't want to assume and be totally wrong and throw people off. So from my understanding, it's kind of just like it's a really cool place. Like if you want to check out like a lot of indie stuff, like you just kind of, you can gravitate towards that place and see like a ton of really great stuff.
Yeah.
And we've had some friends that work down there as well. But yeah, Sixth Floor has a lot of indie stuff. It's weird. It seems to be like kind of filling out a little bit more. Like I said, like it's got a lot more of the vendors up there.
Yeah.
That like sell like the fan gamer stuff, and like Audio Technica is always up there. Annapurna's up there, which is fantastic. We have this weird habit of like, I think last year we were catty corner from this. At the time, we were like, what the fuck is this stupid thing called Fortnite? And it was just this like one box that had like kind of no people for a while, and then like every day that was passed would be like a longer line to get into it. And then we were just like, what is this thing? It's like, I don't know, it's just whatever. And then like it kind of became the biggest thing in the world. Like,
isn't that crazy how that shit happens?
Yeah. We were like, last year like I said, we were less than 10 feet away from their booth, and this year I think they rented 4 floors of a building across the street. Like it was,
that's so wild.
Don't you hate that shit?
It's and like I think a couple years before we were in PAX East, and that was the big one where like, what is this stupid game called Overwatch that like people are into? It was this other thing. It was like there were things around for it. Like you could see like banners. And it was like, I've never heard of this. This looks just like another thing. Like, people. And then again, that became like the biggest game of that year. And it's like, It's funny to watch that kind of thing happen at those conventions. Like I've been a fan of games forever, and I never thought I'd go to one of these conventions as a fan, let alone like work at one. And then so seeing this kind of like that kind of process, which is again something I don't know anything about, of like marketing or anything, like seeing this like small marketing campaign jump into some of the biggest games of the year is really wild.
I still don't understand how Fortnite became as big as it did. Like I remember I was watching one of the smaller streamers that I like to watch sometimes, and they were actually playing the version that you had to buy back in the day, like the co-op thing where you had to. It was like a
back in the day,
yeah, like
back in the day, like 6 months ago.
No, it was probably
times are changing
over a year. Like you had 4 squad members, and you like built a little thing that you had to protect, and you had to shoot the zombies as they were coming in. It's kind of like a wave game, and like it was dumb. And I was like, who fucking would play this? And then
I think that was like what they were showing off when we were with them. Like it was a big booth, and you could see the screens, and like my impression of it was this: is this just like a hoarding? Like you build a base and then wait for someone to attack it?
Yeah, it's like a mobile game on PC. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. And I think I've also like in that time realized that I don't know what Fortnite is, because I thought it was a video game, and now I'm not sure if it's like a video game or like what people do with it. I don't know.
It's it turned in from a waveform game to the biggest battle royale in the gaming industry right now. I don't even know why. Like, I think it's terrible. The graphics are terrible. The playstyle is terrible. I don't know. It's just cheesy and goofy, and I don't know. Maybe it's just because I suck at it, but I think it's terrible. Like, I don't even like some of my favorite streamers have started playing, and I don't even watch them anymore because it's boring. It's like Resident Sleeper 100%.
I've honestly never played it.
Don't waste your time.
I'm really weird about online games.
Mm-hmm.
I think in general, where I just like, I think the first time I played something, when I first tried to, I didn't know what online gaming was or how that worked. And I think like the first time I really tried playing something was like the second Splinter Cell game had like where they introduced their multiplayer.
Hell yeah.
And I think it was for PS2, and I didn't have a network adapter.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that I needed one either, so I kept trying to get in and then would just play the training mode. Like where you get to like hang out in the levels by yourself. And I was like just waiting for something to happen and thought I was doing great, or just thought like, this is weird. I don't know what's happening. Like, how do I online this game? And like, yeah, at that point too, I was just like, well, I don't give a shit about a network adapter, so I'm not going to buy it. And then I think when I got a PS3 and I was playing, I think it was Uncharted 2, when they had their multiplayer, I was really into it, and I was really good at it for like a couple days. Like I was playing and I was like really excited about how good I was. And then like, you know, when this was also when like voice chat wasn't as easy. I don't know. I didn't have a headset, and I was amazed that I could hear what other people were saying, even though I didn't have a headset, you know? Yep. And I was like wrecking this other team. It was really good. I'm not trying to be too brash or anything, but I was doing really well at the time. Mm-hmm. And just hearing people scream through it, and then I heard one guy, I could hear his kids in the background, and then hear him yelling at his kids, being like, "Daddy's playing his game, leave me alone." And just thinking like, Jesus Christ, you have kids. Like, go take care of your kids. Right. Like, I promise I'll pause it. Like, I'll wait for the game. Just like, and in that moment, it just felt like so dark to me of like, this is what online gaming is. And like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so like, I barely play anything online. I think I played like Metal Gear whenever they launched from the newest game, or the Metal Gear Solid 5. Mm-hmm. I played some of the Metal Gear Online of that. And that was okay. I wish that those games worked how they're supposed to work and not just evolve into everyone killing each other.
Yeah. I agree. Like for the most part, but at the same time, like I'm the opposite in the sense of I've always enjoyed multiplayer. Just like even with NES, for example, I preferred the games where, you know, friends could come over and we could both play something together, like co-op or against each other. And so online just kind of brings that to the forefront where you're able to do that over the internet. But I mean, I understand with, you know, online being the way that it is, especially with voice chat and just, you know, like we used to play H1Z1. Do you know what that is?
I do. Yeah.
We used to.
I think my cousin plays it a lot.
We used to play that, and you know, it's supposed to be a survival game. You know, people help each other out, and it devolves into like everyone's just hunting each other.
Yeah.
There's no teamwork.
That wasn't the one that like. So there were like a bunch of games that had a real similar name for a while.
Daisy.
Like, yeah. What was the one where like it got taken off or something because like the creator like went on some insane like homophobic rant and like started banning players for criticizing the game?
Huh.
Is that like...
doesn't ring a bell.
I don't think it was H1Z1. It was like...
The only other one... I know like there's a developer from DayZ that went to go make H1Z1.
I think it was just like... It was something else Z. And it was like a rip-off game kind of thing. And I don't think it's
There's been so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's like around anymore.
Probably
like the
not.
servers might have been taken off recently. And this all could just be like, I could be making this up. So when I was a little kid, I obviously loved Ninja Turtles and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when the second Ninja Turtle movie came out, I was so excited. And I remember my brother coming downstairs and being like, "Dude, I saw a commercial for there's like action figures of the movie." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Because we had a ton of Ninja Turtles action figures. He's like, "It's the turtles, but they look like they look in the movie, and they're made out of rubber."
Oh,
and it's
shit.
awesome. And I was so excited, and I was so pumped. Like, it's like, yes, I was like literally jumping in the air. And then he's like, "It could have been a dream, though. I might have dreamt that. I can't remember." And then so I was just like, oh man. And for like weeks, this was like pre-internet. This was what, 1991, 92 or something like that. So it was like very, I don't know how we got information about anything.
Right.
And I remember like maybe like a month or two later, it felt like years later, but I don't know how long it was. I saw a commercial for it, and he was out playing hockey in our cul-de-sac where we grew up. And I just remember bolting outside and you're like, Andy, it's true. Andy, it's real. You didn't dream it. It's real. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the Ninja Turtles, the toys, they're real. They're totally real. And like him being like, oh yeah, okay, I saw it again. Like he just didn't update me on it. Like I was so excited. And like, so every time like I'm thinking back to that game, sorry to go so off the rails, but
fine.
I have those moments like maybe I dreamt that game.
Yep.
Maybe this is a fever dream of this whole thing happening. But I feel like I remember something like that happening.
But
sorry, yeah.
He was just like, fuck your dreams, Zach.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so, but yeah, H1Z1, I don't play that game, but I know that's like, is that entirely multiplayer?
Yes.
I think you could play it single.
I mean, you
can play, yeah. I
like, is there like a single player campaign, or is it just like you can play it by yourself online?
Yeah, it's just survival.
Oh, okay.
There's no actual campaign or anything.
What's Arma like based on?
Arma is, I haven't really
off of the Arma engine, or was Arma based off the engine of one of those games?
So Arma
came out
was
first.
the first, yeah.
Yeah, and like DayZ was originally an Arma mod. And then DayZ became its own game from that mod, and then it started the whole unraveling of that whole company, because out of Arma came DayZ, out of DayZ came H1Z1, and out of H1Z1 came PUBG.
Yeah. Do you watch that series called No Clip?
No.
With Danny O'Dwyer?
Mm-mm.
You should check that out. He does awesome documentaries about games. Like he did a really great one for the new Doom game. He did one just about like mystery in games and like why we love finding secrets in games. Those are like some of my favorites. But he was like formerly of GameSpot, and then he kind of broke off to do his own venture and just does like zero advertising, like hours long documentaries about games and like super deep dive, like the 30 for 30 for games, and it's fantastic.
Who is that?
Danny O'Dwyer. It's called No Clip.
No Clip. I'm gonna have to remember that.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. But he did one about Player Unknown, and like interviewed him a couple times and was like talking about like how that whole thing got started. And I do remember like he was like a modder or something. But that was another thing. So I guess to bring back Fortnite, there was that issue with like Fortnite copying the battle royale style.
Yeah, at first.
Well, I don't know what that whole garbage was. Like, you had Arma had the DayZ mod come out. H1Z1 came after DayZ. PUBG came after H1Z1. And then Fortnite came after PUBG. And then it was PUBG, wasn't it? Tried to sue Fortnite for copying their game. I was like, you copied the other two people's games before you. I was like, how can you?
No.
I think that there was the larger thing was because it was Epic, and Epic, obviously owns the Unreal Engine, which PUBG is built upon.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like an ethics question if, as a licensee of the engine or something, like they were worried, I think, that Epic would keep certain parts of their engine to themselves and not allow other licensees to use it if they're competitors.
Yeah.
So the concern was that like they were essentially taking their business, like they wouldn't be able to make the same games anymore, or like they wouldn't be able to compete with them because they owned like the pipeline of the engine or something.
Yeah, and it was a big issue at the time. I remember, siding with PUBG just because, H1Z1 did come out with King of the Kill first, which was a battle royale. It was like the original probably battle royale game, and PUBG made it popular. Like they made like the skeleton for how battle royale should work, and now every battle royale out there is copying that style, including Fortnite. And the thing about Fortnite, the only reason Fortnite even became what it is now is because PUBG had such an issue with optimization of their game, and
the desync and lag was real.
Yeah, the desync lag was bad.
Yeah.
It's better nowadays, but in the beginning it was horrible. And on top of that, they just weren't like Fortnite started coming out with these like league passes and skins and all that stuff, and they just started falling behind. PUBG did, and when you have a much better optimized game like Fortnite, it just overthrew PUBG by far.
It's my understanding also that like Fortnite is like a million different games, right? Like it seems like, and again, this is like I would love for someone to correct me here. Like Fortnite is more than like just a battle royale mode, right?
So the battle royale mode is free. Like anybody can download it. You just sign up, create an account, and you get to play the battle royale mode. Now they have their standalone version, which is kind of like a H1Z1 where it's survival, but you just it's not open world. You have this little area that you're in, and you go out and collect some resources and build a base, and then you have like waves of zombies that come in and attack you or whatever. That costs money. You have to actually buy that version of the game, which nobody buys. Nobody plays that anymore. So there are different things, but Fortnite as a whole, like the thing that everybody's playing, is a free-to-play battle royale, and that's basically all it is. And how? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and they make all their money off of like skins and league passes and just little goodies, like cosmetic goodies they add into the game.
They sell in-game currency, and you have to have that in-game currency to buy the skins and the backpacks and the little guns and like it's stupid kiddie shit. Like I don't know why.
So it's like a virtual like amusement park is what you're saying, like where you got to buy like tickets to ride each game kind of thing, but like it only takes like the
it's
in-park currency.
It's completely free to play. Like you can have you can play with as a base skin character. There's base skins that anybody can play, so you can play the game completely free and never pay a dime and have fun with it. And there's no advantage to the things that you can buy from the in-game currency. It's all cosmetic. None of it, gives you an advantage over somebody that doesn't pay. So it's literally just people that want their character to look different while they're playing. They pay hundreds of dollars to get the in-game currency.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong
dark.
business. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I've never understood it. But, I mean, I can't say much because I pay a monthly subscription to play the game that I play, so what can you do about that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to... I'm certainly not disparaging anyone that plays those kind of games. It's just beyond my my understanding and kind of beyond my... like what I'm looking for, I think, in games for myself.
Yeah. Right.
I think that I'm also just... I can't afford to play that kind of stuff either. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love that, there's free versions of games, but I think that I'm pretty naturally like untrusting of that kind of thing. Where like,
I mean, especially
freedom ain't free, bro. Like nothing's totally free.
Especially with these like new PC games or PS4 or Xbox, they come out and no matter how shitty the game actually may be, they still slap a $59.99 tag on it.
Yep.
And then, it comes out a few weeks, a bunch of people buy it because of all the hype they put out, and then it ends up being a shit game, and then it goes down to like $15 a few months later, and no one's buying it at that point. So
it seems like there's just such a model now of taking things that other people are successful with and like using that as your own kind of business model.
Yep.
There was this game that was announced a couple years ago, I remember seeing, and after they announced it, like when I was at PAX, I saw maybe like 5 games with essentially the exact same title with some of the names changed. Like it was like, I don't want to call out anyone's game here, but like it was just like there, just like a couple, things were different.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
But it was essentially like you could confuse this with this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys read comics at all?
I don't
used to.
personally.
Comics are like familiar with like Yoshihiro Tatsumi, who was like a manga artist in like the 60s. He recently put out like maybe it was like 2008. He put out like an autobiography just called Tatsumi. But he was one of the originators of like Geikiga comics, which were more like, it was like Japan's alternative comics, which kind of led into like I don't know if you're familiar with like Lone Wolf and Cub, was kind of part of that movement too. But he, in his autobiography, he like talks about how he got started in like the rental comic market, and they were hired to make comics that like would have the same name as a popular movie at the time. And then like a totally different story, and like they would have a totally different artist do the cover that looked kind of like the movie, so that people would see these things on the shelf and be like, oh, I love that movie, this must be about that, and just grab it and then read. Like that was their foot in the door kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like this seems like a real similar thing with like, especially like the free to play market, or like the getting into like the big like you know, online multiplayer stuff. Sometimes it's just like, let's get I mean, it's an understandable business model. It works.
Yeah.
They do it in every other business of like, we know these things work. Let's, you know, do these things that we know work. And that's how, you know, it's like, you know, when you see like 8 pizza shops on one street,
Right.
you know, like, hey, this place is doing great, I should just open up a pizza shop.
Yeah.
You know, or like heroin sells really well. You know, like it's an easy business, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at a game like, if you're familiar with Hearthstone, you know, that game came out. Now there's all these other card games that are coming out that are on Steam and other places that you can get. And everyone's copying that model. And like, if there's a massive multiplayer online game, everyone likes to copy like World of Warcraft.
I mean, and again, it's like, that's not always a terrible thing.
It's not.
Like,
it's
that's
not.
how genres are built too. And like, you know, it's hard to like, you know, there's influence and then there's like imitation.
Right.
And that's, I think they both kind of go hand in hand. And sometimes like, one of the great things I think about like, you know, indie games especially is that a lot of people know each other, and a lot of people like are familiar with what each other are doing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, see those things, be like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I can improve on it somehow. Or like, let's, you know, it's people constantly pushing each other back and forth. And like, if you even just like following some developers on Twitter, you can see how like it's almost like that's like a really healthy competition where like people are really like becoming really ingenious, like that are just pushing things and trying to, you know, innovate like one after another, and like, oh, this guy did this, let me try doing this. And like that guy's like, oh, well, you think you did this, like, you know, and she's like, well, I'm going to do this. And it's just, it grows into this big thing, and it's awesome. And so I don't think it's like inherently bad. There's just, you catch a couple cases where you're like, okay, this is like very obviously just trying to get some of that pizza business.
Well,
you know,
that's the one thing I think I don't like about it is you have a lot of these companies that are going around. They're taking the time to create this game. They put it into an alpha stage, and they start selling it in the alpha stage with promises of making it, a full release game in, 2 years or whatever. And you're supposed to be funding the alpha, beta, and finally the standalone game. This has happened with DayZ still. This has happened with H1s. It's happened with all these games. They come out in alpha. The idea of the game is really cool, and everybody's always looking for, a new game to try out. And so they put out this game at 30%. They, somehow it blows up. A streamer gets a hold of it, and then a bunch of other streamers get a hold of it. And then this company makes gob tons of money from selling this game at alpha stage. They make, multi-million dollars off this, 30% game. And then they get all the money, and they're like, well, we've already made more money than what we probably expected to in the full version of the game. Do we even, waste our time continuing to update the game? And I think that's where the bad part is, because they have all these people that buy the game in the alpha stage, and then they make all the money and they just want to drop it and go on to something else because that's where they're making their money at.
There should be some kind of clause that prevents that. Like,
Yeah, there should be.
You have to be committed to finishing the game.
That's also like I think kind of a hard. I think like all the stuff that we're talking about, and like even a lot of the stuff that I complain about, especially, it's hard to forget sometimes that like video games are games too.
Mhm.
Like the same, like it's kind of going off the rails sometimes in the way that like professional sports are, where you're just like, this was a game once,
Mhm.
and now it's a business, and like
Right.
you can. The way I think that like players sometimes treat each other, players treat employees of companies
Mhm.
with this like it feels like kind of like a slippery slope sometime of like what we expect of the creators of these games as fans, and I kind of feel like there aren't that many industries that have that same issue where a bunch of players can kind of get together and get employees fired. You know what I mean?
That's
Because these games are businesses.
Yeah, that's dumb.
And like, yeah, so it's really silly. So like sometimes I want to, you look at things as like a consumer,
Mhm.
but you also want to be like, okay, well, I kind of know what this is like, and this is also kind of an unfair situation. And these are just games, and these are people trying to make games at the same time. So it's disappointing when you see people that, that are obviously abusing this and like their business models and stuff like that, and kind of preying upon people that have very addictive personalities
Right.
sometimes. And
Got my ass, that's for sure. Multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, they're not dumb. They know what the hell they're doing, and it works.
yeah, there's a psychology to it, man.
Yep.
Yeah, especially with like other industries. Like when you think of like a cell phone company, they, if something bad happens, like one of their phones doesn't work or something's wrong with their service, they do get instant blowback, but it's not towards like the CEO, while with a video game, it almost seems like instant punch in the face to like the developers, especially if it's a smaller indie company. Like
Yeah,
if they get blowback on like a bug in the game, it's instant like, this game sucks, I'm never gonna play it again. It's like
sure, and that's like that's like a really stressful
Yeah.
Environment to like make games in at the same way. And I think that like when you hear a lot of stories about people going through crunch periods with building games, and like it's kind of just creating a negative attitude across the industry, and there's so much competition for everything, like, and we can circle that back to people just trying to like get their piece of the pie, and like, well, how can I you see like mobile clones all the time
Oh,
of like especially like games that are between like 1 to 10 people on a development team that are spending years really trying to make something interesting and innovative, and then only for like their property to start gaining popularity as they're getting towards launching, and seeing that like someone just beats them to the punch with the exact same idea on a mobile thing, and they have a team of 30 to 100 people just cranking this stuff out, and it's really difficult to kind of see that happen to people. But like at the same time, like that's the stuff that everyone within the industry, a lot of times you hear them complaining about, is just these crunches are just so hard to deal with. But it's such an odd industry.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I can't think of anything else that's quite like it right now. And I would gladly take, I would love to be proven wrong
Right.
about that. But
Yeah.
like, and maybe it's just because it's so close to what I do right now too. It's hard to think of anything else like that.
Yeah. I wanted to actually segue into kind of from this conversation into like your titles in Retrotainment games via Twitch. Twitter. What I've gotten from Twitter is that you're the illustrator, graphic and games designer, and lead visual designer for Retrotainment. So what does that entail? I mean, I can definitely take a guess that you do probably most of the artwork, but
yeah, so we're a team of about 5 to 6 people. We're working on a game right now called Full Quiet.
Mhm.
It's a open world kind of action adventure mystery for the NES.
Okay.
So my role in that is to work on level design, and actually do the visual design of the levels, kind of get the look of the game going. And it's just, building art for the game. We have another friend of ours that came on to just do animations, who's just working on like character sprites and stuff like that. His name's Andrew. Thomas Cipollone, goes by the Human Thomas on Twitter, is our sound designer. He's a terrific musician. He does all the sound effects, the compositions for everything. Like I said, Greg, who is our game director, he kind of does a little bit of everything, kind of cleans up everyone's stuff, makes sure like we have like a really cohesive look to everything, make sure that everyone's on the same page. We have a programmer named Damien who just absolutely understands assembly, 6502 assembly, which is like a pretty basic coding language that's not applicable in the real world in any way. Like I think the only things that used it were like, I think the Apple II used it, like maybe the TI 80 or TI 100, like whatever Texas Instrument computer that was like the Apple One. I think one of their calculators.
That's so crazy.
The Atari 2600, and then the Terminator. So if you watch the Terminator, all of his code is written in assembly.
Damn.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, you guys say you make games for the NES, and I was actually watching one of our sponsored streamers, Kilroy, and I think that's the guy that kind of tied us all together.
We met at the mixer.
Okay.
Like the first night of PAX, they do a mixer for all the exhibitors and stuff, and we met there. Yeah.
And so I was watching him. He was asking me actually if we had gotten contact with you. He's like, what are you doing on the podcast? He's like, I'm excited to listen to it. I talked to this guy for quite a while, and it was really interesting stuff. And I was like, I think we have it scheduled for this Friday. And he's like, cool. He's like, I'm ready to listen to it. And he's like, well, did you ever get filled in on what he does? And I was like, well, kinda. They said he made games for the NES. And I was like, well, how do they do that? And he tried to explain it, and he said something about the patent or something fell off from Nintendo. And so technically anybody in the market can make games like cartridges for the old NES. Like, how does all that work?
Yeah, so like the copyright's been up for a long time. I think I was in like maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. I'm off with that as well.
Right.
But that's been up for a while. So people have been able to kind of reverse engineer both like the NES itself, and they can just start making their own boards and shells and stuff now, and it's not illegal. And Nintendo definitely knows about it.
Right.
And kind of the best case scenario for a lot of people that do that is that like they just don't care and they don't say anything at all, which is what's been great, because there's a super awesome like dedicated homebrew community out there. If you look into it, like people have been making like NES homebrews for a long time now. Like if you ever check out any of like the NES dev forums or like Nintendo Age or Retro USB, they've been doing some awesome stuff. And when we got started working on our game, like everyone on those things was like super, super supportive and helped us out a ton. Like a lot of those guys helped us out like when we had trouble with sound engine issues. And it's been like a really cool, like non-competitive community where like everyone around that stuff like wants to see that kind of thing succeed, because for a lot of those guys it's kind of a hobby too. And then like some people have been making some bigger projects and really been doing awesome stuff with it. And we met our programmer through a lot of those people and like a lot of those forums and stuff like that, like, and he loves, he's super candid about how he works. He will help other people with their projects if they ask. Like he knows a lot about it. And all these guys are like, they're so excited to talk about it. We've become, good friends with a lot of these guys that I think are really awesome at what they do. And it's because they just have a real like love for it. And it like, I think goes beyond nostalgia for a lot of people, as just like what we see it as is like there's so much untapped potential within these machines.
Yeah.
That like you can make some really cool stuff, and we're trying to make new modern experiences on these older consoles, and there's just, I mean, it's insane that like how well these things were built, that like you could drop an NES and it still works.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
I kicked one a few times.
People have had for 30 years. I think like
they still
the
work.
biggest thing that goes is like the pin connectors, and you can find pin connectors for like $16.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend found her old NES at her parents' basement, and it looked terrible. And we just like spent like a Sunday afternoon, cleaning it up, and it works great. There's something, I think, I don't know, like not to tangent too much, but part of like the whole digital game thing as well. Like, people love, like, especially like, collectors love being able to own something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you own something in the digital sense, it never quite feels like it's yours. Like I never feel like I own an album unless I like have it on vinyl or something. You know what I mean? Or like you never quite own something, and maybe that's a compulsion that's for another podcast as well. But like, I think that making physical media is like really important to us. And, even though, so we're releasing now on PC and Xbox One, pushing for other, consoles to be ported to, like, we love physical media. We love making everything by hand. Like we have a guy that we work with at Infinite NES Lives who makes all brand new, boards for us and everything. And, we have another, we get injection molds for like through other people and stuff to get our cartridges made specifically for what we do, get our boxes and everything printed, and then put everything together by hand. So like if you buy one of our games, it's passed through, at least one of us has put it together by hand.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, what have you guys touched? Jeez. Getting all those germs in the mail.
Exactly. Well, no, it's clean. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, that's a real concern. That's fine. We're all still here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my old NES that's in my parents' attic, I think I actually don't remember if I have to put books under it or put books on top of it for it to work.
Do it both. Make like a NES sandwich.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I had like over 80 games, and I think I still have a ton of them. But
I had a microwave like that, where like we had to put something under everything. Like you had to have like an upside down bowl.
Oh yeah.
And then put the plate on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would always burn.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there's little things like that. The NES must work like a microwave.
Maybe.
So the NES is what you guys are working on right now, and you said it's going to Xbox and PC.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to Xbox or PC, does that mean like, since you guys are going for kind of the physical form of things, are you guys actually making CDs?
We always talk, but that's something we would love to do. Right now we're just, releasing digitally on those. But yeah, like we would love the opportunity to do that. Obviously it's a different process. What's nice about the cartridges at the same time too, is that we're totally in control of our own production.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're not, if we want to make it, we can make it. And obviously like working with like other publishers or other companies where we would probably be at their behest as well. And again, I don't handle the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So however that works, it works. And like I said, like when we do it ourselves, we know that we're like, it's like a 1-to-1 ratio of what we do versus, everything else.
So another thing I was curious about is just simply why NES? Like why not SNES or why not Sega or something else? Why NES specifically?
I think for everyone on the team, it was kind of like, this is when we fell in love with video games.
Yeah. Same.
This is like, I never even had an NES when I was a kid. Like I remember all my neighbors had them. And my brother and I actually built our first NES out of an empty Kleenex box and a TV that wasn't on and we would just play like Tiger handheld games
Oh shit!
in front of the TV and pretend that we were playing a Nintendo. Like, so we would make our own cartridges out of like pieces of cardboard that we would stick into the top slot of
That's awesome.
the Kleenex box. And I remember my grandma, my dad's parents bought us a Super Nintendo for Christmas. And in one way I was like super excited. I was like, this is incredible. Like, I was so fucking pumped about having it. And then at the other time, like, I was also kind of sad that like I lost that experience. Like, my brother and I shared a room, you know, that like we didn't, that we weren't going to get to do that every night, is play fake Nintendo. Like that to me, like we, you know, we got to build all of our stuff as kids like that. Like, we would just like repurpose some of our action figures into other ones and do these things. And that was like, you know, that was something that I think in the moment I always like, oh, I wish we just had the real thing. And then when we'd get the real thing, there was this kind of like pang of like, oh, but that was really fun to do that kind of thing. So, but yeah, like, so
I was just gonna say, I was gonna totally change the subject. I was like, it kind of reminds me of when you're underage drinking. It was a cool thing to do because you weren't 21, and then once you turn 21, it's not cool anymore.
Sure, yeah. Like, yeah, I think, you know, it's only cool to say you're drinking all the time until you're drinking all the time and your life is spiraling out of control, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah.
God, that's a terrible reference, but that's what it made me think of.
No, that's how my head works. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I guess to kind of get back, like, this is like, we all, you know, we're super, super into like the NES. Even when I got the Super Nintendo and I had Super Mario World, which is, I played, you know, modern games. I'm still like, right now I play games for PS4, everything. Super Mario World, I think, is still the greatest game of all time. That's still my favorite game.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, even when I had that, like, I remember like going over to my friend's house and he's like, let's go play your Super Nintendo. Like, can we just play the regular Nintendo a little bit too?
Right.
Like, I miss, like, you know, I love Mario 2. Also, that's one of my other favorite Mario games. There's just something about that. It was simple. There was, I don't know, like, I feel like that wonder sometimes skips generations in video games too. Where like the PS3 kind of skipped that wonderful feeling that like the PS2 had, you know?
Yeah.
And then they got it back with like the PS4. Like, turning on a PS4 gives you that same feeling that like when you first turn on a PS2 did, I think, and like the PlayStation 1 did. Sometimes it skips those kind of things. And there's just something really special about a Nintendo for me. And maybe it was because I didn't have it as a kid. And so like, you know, when you hear a song in like a record store and you're like, this is fucking awesome, I gotta get this record. And you get the record home and you're like, this isn't that great anymore. Like, hearing things in passing, like, can have that feeling. And so I think that like the wonder of the NES, like, never wore off on me.
Yeah.
So like, even as an adult now, like, that I play it, you know, or like, you know, we have one in the house and I go to conventions and I play my own games on the NES all the time. Like, it's never lost that kind of feeling of like wonder and spectacle to me.
Yeah.
And
the NES was actually my first console, and I don't think I got it. I think it was my first gaming console, and we didn't get it until 2003, 2004. Like, I grew up in a house, we never had games, we didn't have computers. And then actually one of my dad's best friends gave us his old NES from when he had gotten it. And it was in the early 2000s. I believe GameCube or something was already out at the time. And we were,
that sounds about right.
We were just getting our first NES, and it was our first gaming console. And I remember playing the piss out of that. And like, I was so jealous of all the other kids. They had, you know, the Sega Dreamcast and all that kind of stuff, and the GameCubes. But whenever I'd go home, I still enjoyed playing the NES. I had a little blue travel case and everything that came with it. I wish I still had it, but I remember spending a lot of time on that console.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, seeing people play it for the first time. Like, something that, you know, I talk about with a lot of people too is like our experience of making these games. I think going into it, I had zero expectations
Mhm.
for what we were doing. And it really just started as kind of a hobby for me. Like, my background is mostly in like, print design type stuff. Like, I worked on like posters a lot
Mhm.
and did some like logo designs and everything. And Greg, our director, I had met him he played hockey with my brother in like a men's league or something. And, we just seen each other around, and he and Tim own a couple video game stores in Pittsburgh where we're from,
Mhm.
called Cash and Culture. And like if you buy our game online, you're getting it through that store and everything too. But so for their like 10th anniversary, they wanted to start making games because Greg and Tim have been best friends since 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how far back they go into the business and everything. And so they kind of just realized they didn't quite have, all of the chops they needed to make a game. So they started like talking to people. I think it was my brother, my old roommate, that saw Greg and was like, "Hey, well, Zach does graphic design. You should ask him." And he asked me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it." And like, had no idea how it was going to work, and really just kind of, I guess I was one of the few people he talked to about that actually kind of followed through with learning the restrictions and sitting through it. And then our sound guy, Thomas, I think they did like a Reddit post looking for some, just like someone who could
Right.
design sound for the NES. And his friend told him to check it out. We heard from this guy. We had no idea that he was from Pittsburgh or whatever. I remember Greg at the meeting was like, "We found this guy." And then like the next day when we were having a meeting, he was going through some email. And he's like, "Why is this guy in my group chat?" And we saw his thing, and I was like, "Oh, that Thomas. Yeah, I know Thomas." Like, we both knew him, like from playing like punk shows and stuff together. Like our bands had played shows together, and we just didn't realize it was the same person. It turned out he was, he lived, like 10 minutes away from us too. Like, we had no idea it was in Pittsburgh, and like, so it was this really kind of cool connection like that. So we're like, we've all known each other for a little while, and we're kind of friends. So it's really weird how like everything kind of came together, and all of us had that same, love for the system. But when we started the project, my first inclination was like, this is only going to be like old dicks that are playing this stuff, like that love the NES, that like we should have tons of swearing in the game,
Right?
Like, because what I want, like when you beat the game, it should say "you fucking win." Like that should be like the end of the game, and
Right.
that's like I really wanted that.
That would make me
I
smile.
really fought for it, and
Yeah.
Greg and Tim were very much like, "No, kids are gonna play this game." Like our characters, our first game that we were making, Haunted Halloween '85. You play as a kid fighting zombies in his town.
Mhm.
And he's like, "No, there's a kid character. Kids are gonna play this game, and we can't have swearing."
Hmm.
And I fought them on it the entire time. I was like, "This is so dumb." And the first convention that we worked, which was Replay FX, which is in Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
It's a really cool, like, it's more of a vendor show. So I think we were maybe one of the only 2 or 3 people that actually made games that were at these things.
Mhm.
And that's where they hold like huge pinball tournaments.
Oh, nice.
Like Billy Mitchell shows up and does stuff. Yeah, it's weird, but like it's an awesome convention. But the first couple guys that tried our game,
they weren't
like,
kids.
They were frustrating because it was hard. And granted, like our first demo was really hard. Like we had not. That was the other thing, is when you make an NES game, people expect it to be kind of hard. So our first demo was in like, I think the 4th level of our game at the time. So like it kind of ramped up, and like people were having trouble, and like, it was those guys that were around our age or a little younger. We're all in our 30s. And they were like, "Oh, I haven't played the NES in years, or I remember this stuff." And like, they would get frustrated within like a couple minutes, and then just like drop the controller and be like, "Whatever," and kind of walk away. And the first kid that came and played it, like with his friend, he did terrible. He was
I was gonna
awful
say
at
he's gonna beat ass.
it. No, but he was awful. But when he was awful at it, he would turn to his friend and smile and like nudge him with his elbow and be like, "Let's do it again," and keep doing it. And like, they were the ones that were like, they would not stop playing, and they gravitated towards it for some reason, and like just really, really liked it. And we've worked conventions where like I've seen kids just literally standing there kicking the air, trying to like, you know, play the game and like pretending that they're the characters. Or like our second game we made, Haunted Halloween 86, which it was the sequel. We added a second playable character that you can swap in whenever you want. And just you press select and it swaps between Donnie or Tammy. And so she was playing the game and she was kind of into it. And I was like, now if you press select, you can switch to this girl and she fights with kicks and jumps. And her face just like totally lit up and was like, I love this because I'm a girl and I do karate and Chun-Li's my favorite. I love this. And she called her sister over. And that was like one of those things where like, you know, those moments like, this is why representation matters and things. And this is why like you build things for like, you do these things for those kind of things. And like, it felt so awesome to watch her feel so good about playing that at the same time. And like, I said like, you guys were totally right. Like, you know, I still wish there was more swearing, but like, I will totally concede that like I had no idea that kids would gravitate towards it in any fashion whatsoever. And it's been like the most pleasant surprise of like this entire experience is like how much, you know, seeing adults share this with their kids and being like, oh, this was my first system. And then seeing these kids like just love it. You know, my cousin, who's maybe like close to 10 years older than me, you know, to help support our game, like, you know, she bought an NES for her son who's, you know, less than 10 years old now, and he loves the NES and plays NES games all the time now. Like, it's not hard. I think that's the biggest thing is it's so simple.
Yep.
And it's so easy to jump into. And if you make a good game for it and make it, you know, essentially make the rules easy to understand, kids are going to do it. I mean, we all did it as kids.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I definitely want to look into some of those games that you have, even though my NES is back in Oklahoma, so I don't even have it with me. But definitely like on Steam or something of that sort.
Can you get the games on Steam?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
you can get the first 2 games on Steam right now. We're still working on Full Quiet. We're trying to get it out by the end of the year. It's a much bigger game. We built our engine from scratch too. So like the first couple of things we always got when we were touring these out is everyone thought they were just like reskins or hacks. And we had to like explain that we built our engine all from the ground up. So every game that we've made, we've improved on our engine every time. So this is the biggest overhaul for us that we've done because, you know, the first 2 games, the first game was on what it's called like a BM ROM, which was like a really early mapper for the NES, which is like what Super Mario Brothers came out on. And the second one we used an MMC3 mapper, but we kept the same rules of like you just keep moving to the right, you can't go back.
Right.
You can't go left. And this game, they said it's an open world game, so it's contiguous and like we have 8-way scrolling, so you can, you know, some of the levels are really tall, some of them are really long, but you can go back and forth and you're trying to solve a mystery and solve puzzles. So it's about exploring and stuff like that. And that was a big challenge for us to create a game of like the same quality that we did with our previous 2 games and trying to make like a much bigger open experience. So it's been taking us, our development time has been a little bit longer, and we had a successful Kickstarter that every one that contributed has been super, super supportive and awesome.
Good.
We've had like some of the best like support within the community that we could ever possibly hope to have.
That's good.
That's awesome.
Like I said, the homebrew community is awesome. Fans of those things are really great, and they've all been like, we couldn't do this stuff without them. Like without the crowdsourcing that we've done with them, like it's just been such a great experience for us.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I hope it does awesome. I hope it keeps going good. We have already done an hour, so I'm going to segue us into the random question of the day segment to kind of close things out, and then we'll be on our way out. So the random question is actually not random at all. It's just kind of continuing the questions I've been asking. But the main question I really wanted to ask is, do you guys have future plans for branching out to, let's say, Sega Genesis or SNES or things like that and start making actual cartridges for those?
We get that question a lot, actually. We would love to do that in the future. We
would need a bigger team.
Maybe that, like, we would just need downtime, I think. We've been kind of working nonstop on stuff, and what's been nice about working on the NES is that, like I said, it has such a great community of people that are working in it, that over the years, like, these other tools have been built for it, that kind of exist out there. And like I said, we build our engine, but we are all kind of, the way the communities works is like everyone kind of builds upon what a lot of other people are doing, and it's not that they're sharing code so much as just like sharing ideas and stuff. And there's just a much larger community out there of people that we're building. So we would have to build our own stuff from scratch again, and kind of take a lot of downtime to work on just engine building again. Part of what we've been trying to do is push things as far as we can. So when we make an SNES game, we want it to be as good of an SNES game as you can get out there.
Right.
We have been working on some projects with, if you're familiar with I Am 8-Bit, the company, they do a lot of vinyl releases. They do some like figures, but I don't know if you saw the reissue of Street Fighter 2 on Super Nintendo that came out last year. We worked on that with them, so we did all their physical production on that. So we made, the same guy that does our boards made the boards for the SNES cartridges, and we had like an injection mold made. We had like, it came in two colors. It was like Ryu red and like a glow in the dark Blanca. That was like the special edition that was like completely random. And I Am 8-Bit just like crushed the packaging. It was amazing. It was like a tri-fold open image. They're such a great company. I think they sold out within 24 hours of their pre-order of that. And so that was like a limited edition of 1,500 that, again, we spent a lot of time putting together by hand. But as far as our own projects, we'd love to get into that eventually. But it's just going to wait a little bit longer, probably.
All right, man. Well, Zach, it was a pleasure to have you on. There's so much more I wanted to.
Yeah, he started talking about having a band. I was like, oh shit, he had a band.
Yeah,
I didn't know he had a band.
No, it was like this again, the game stuff has been like kind of so encompassing. I guess the kind of last thing I can say, like, so I played music for a while, but I always was interested in design and always wanted to do that more. Like, I went to school for it, but working more like freelance, it kind of takes a little while to do it, and I always felt like kind of halted. But I was playing some music. I was working in a record store, and a guy that I was friends with that also he was like a producer and like worked with some other guys. He's been coding since he was like 14. He makes like mobile apps and stuff. But he's tremendous at his job.
Yeah.
And he was offered a job out of state programming for a pretty well-known company at the time. And he ended up not taking it, just to stay in Pittsburgh and, kind of start a family and everything. And we were talking, and he's like, well, the other thing is like, music doesn't mean as much to me as it does to you. It's not like my biggest thing. And I was like, music's not really my biggest thing either. Like, I would rather be doing design.
Right.
And he's like, well, if you really loved it, you'd be doing it.
You're like, oh,
and
shit.
He's like, all those nerds in high school that everyone made fun of because they just like never went outside. They just like stayed in their house playing on the computer coding. Like, those guys are doing that right now.
Yep.
Because they absolutely love it. And like, that was just like, we were actually like at a show, like music blaring behind us, and he said that, and that was like a huge like wake up call for me, where I was like, no, he's totally right. If I really loved this, I would be buckling down and doing this. And another friend of mine who he's a comic artist named Jim Rugg. I was doing design stuff, and I've always had a problem showing it to other people too. I've been really critical of my own work for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was working at the record store, he came in to, sell one of his books, see if we wanted to sell it in the store, called Aphrodisiac, which if you've never read it, you should check it out. It's awesome. He works on Street Angel. It's his main thing. He's a great comic artist. I think he does the Lumberjanes as well, and has done like tons of covers for plenty of companies. But showing him the work, and he was very complimentary, very nice, and he was just like, show people your work. Just get it out there. It doesn't matter if it's terrible, whatever you think, kind of put it out there. Get a Twitter account, get a Tumblr, and just start putting it out. And that was like the next day I did that, and like both of those conversations happened within like a month of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the biggest thing that was kind of like a wake up call to me of just like, yeah, if I really love this, I would be doing it. This would be like the thing. So that's like anyone that talks to us at conventions about like wanting to get in games, like that's the only, like, I am not a profound person at all, but like the best advice I can ever pass on to anyone else is that if you love it, you'd be doing it. And so just do it.
Just do it.
The first step to doing anything is just doing anything.
Follow your dreams, kids.
Nike, just do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, or just, yeah.
Get into that controversial topic. God, we'd be here for another hour. Please don't.
That's not even controversial to me. I'm behind it right now.
All right, Zach. Well, I had a ton of fun, man. I hope you did as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to check you out on Twitter or check out Retrotainment Games, anything we've talked about tonight, what are some places they can check all that
out? You can find me on Twitter at rzachary, ARZACHARY. It's a play on a Mobius title. It's very dumb. But you can find me on there. You can find Retrotainment at retrotainment.com, Retrotainment or at Retrotainment HQ on Twitter. Find us on Facebook. We're actually going to be at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo next month. It's, I think, the 18th through the 22nd, or within that time, of October in Portland. That's a really awesome convention if you're in the Pacific Northwest. It's like a great vendor show, tons of great homebrew stuff, free play arcade. That's a really awesome convention. We actually debuted our first game there. And nice. So we always said, like, we're always coming back here. Mm-hmm. Everyone there has been super cool to us, and we go every year. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest or you're not and just looking for an awesome convention like that, it's absolutely worth the trip. So that you can find us in person like that, or just say hello online.
All right. Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, with that said, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Nope. No. If you live in North Carolina, I hope you're safe and watch out for the hurricanes and
evacuate.
Yeah. Be nice to each other. Yeah. That's all, man.
Take your pets.
All right, guys.
Yeah, if you're anywhere in the world, be nice to each other, especially the internet. If you're on the internet right now.
All right, guys. We will see you next week.
Laters.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and even if you didn't, we would love to hear your feedback, which can be sent to coldonepodcast@gmail.com or leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us gauge how we can make this podcast better for your enjoyment. If you would like to contact us, you can do that through our email or follow us on social media, which is at Cold One Podcast for Twitter and Facebook. We are now on Spotify as well as most podcast apps in existence, but if you prefer to listen to it online, head on over to our website, actionsperminute.net, for the latest episodes, a link to the APM Network Discord, or to check out any of our APM-sponsored streamers. And lastly, if you like what we do, tell your friends and spread the good word. Thank you again, and remember,